Okay, YouTube, this is Acid Roots. We're going to talk about Rob Zombie's greatest hits album, Past, Present, and Future. So, this album, when it came out in 2003, Rob Zombie had his biggest album at the time with The Sinister Urge, which had 5 singles in rotation on the radio. And then, in addition to that, he made a movie, which was House of a Thousand Corpses, and did some songs on the soundtrack also. Now, I've reviewed all this. You can find plenty of Rob Zombie on my channel, including a bit of White Zombie, which was the band he was in before he went solo. So, this album has 19 songs and virtually has every single hit off of his albums, but it doesn't really put more than 2 or 3 songs from each project. Now, the only weakness to this is if there were more than 3 hits to an album, it was not covered on this. So the biggest example of that is on the Sinister Urge, and I'd also say House of a Thousand Corpses soundtrack. I mean, Brick House 2003 may have seemed like a hit, but I feel like there were probably stronger songs off of that. I would know because I remember reviewing it. I don't remember entirely, but Pussy Liquor is a good one, but I feel like there was probably at least one other song that could have wound up on there. But a strength to this is if you own every Rob Zombie and White Zombie album, you're still not gonna. It still would be a wise idea to buy this album because you get some of his soundtrack releases like The Crow, City of Angels, Airheads, and Private Parts. So between all those things, we had quite a strong showing. Rob Zombie is able to carry a greatest hits album pretty easily. I think if he would have broke it up into 12 songs on each disc, he probably could have made it a double disc. Now, obviously, there is some decoration type stuff to this album because he does have a pretty nice album booklet that has color and vivid pictures in it, and it also has a DVD that shows some videos. So it's good that the extra stuff is on here. And obviously the complete Rob Zombie picture would be to mess with his movies and some of the soundtrack and the remixes that he does. Obviously, another one review that you should probably go and see is my American Made Music to Strip to, or something like that. It's a remix album of Hellbilly Deluxe, and it basically remixes every song, including the singles. So, but really, none of those songs are on here, so it would be wise to get that also. But I'm going to talk about the single off this project because there was one released, and that was Two Lane Backdrop. There's 2 unreleased songs, or never before heard Rob Zombie songs. First one is Two Lane Blacktop, and that one kind of feels similar to Demon Speeding. It's a little bit less. It's not as hard of a song as Demon Speeding, but it still feels like kind of you're on the road when you listen to it. This feels like you've got somewhere to go. It is a decently hard song. I'd probably give it like a 6 as far as roughness. Demon Speeding is obviously a 10. Super Beast is probably a 9. And then songs like Feed the Gods, that's probably a 10 also. So these are just some moments. Rob Zombie can definitely turn things up, but he has some other songs on here like Never Gonna Stop. That's one, and I think I'm Your Boogeyman is another. To some of these, I'm not quite as used to the White Zombie songs. That was something. I mean, I was not really paying attention back in the early 90s to that sort of music. So the fact that he's been here since 1991, 1988, there's some extra music that I just didn't get to paying attention to. But I did like Thunder Kiss 65. That's another one that is kind of similar to Demon Speeding, except that one feels more like that Thunder Kiss feels more like a presentable song more so than Demon Speeding does. I can kind of see some people preferring the White Zombie days to this. So he does have songs on here. I feel like Dragula is an obvious candidate and More Human Than Human. But, obviously, depending upon what you listen to for Rob Zombie, he's pretty much got he's pretty much got every aisle covered. So, yeah, so it's a hit nonetheless. And so I'm going to talk about some of the immediate ones, some of the ones you need to hear. Virtually, I like this whole album except for Supercharger Heaven. No, I like that song. All right, there were only 4 songs that I didn't have a taste for, and that was Black Sunshine, I'm Your Boogeyman, Brick House 2003, and Blitzkrieg Bop. Besides those songs, every other song on here is a hit. Now, the only other one that I was on the fence about was Girl on Fire, but that's only because of like a kind of radio static type thing that's on here. It has like a beep, some sort of beep on there that I didn't really like, but other than that, it was a good song. And so I'm going to talk about a few of these. So obviously, Feed the Gods, like I said, that's a hard song. It's one of the hardest songs on here. I think the Sinister Urge songs is where Rob Zombie really started to hit his stride as far as metal. Hellbilly Deluxe and the White Zombie, the later White Zombie stuff, kind of had some electronic feels to it. And really, there weren't enough songs from Astro Creep 2000. We could have used that third single. But Hands of Death with Alice Cooper, that one was a real nightmarish song, which I appreciate. I feel like Alice Cooper is just like Marilyn Manson. I tried reviewing him, but he doesn't really release singles that much. So he's obviously one that's a snaking song. Pussy Liquor, I feel like reiterating that song because it, from the House of a Thousand Corpses soundtrack, most people kind of ignore this out of the Rob Zombie catalog, but there's 4 songs just like it off that soundtrack. And that one is kind of similar to Never Gonna Stop. They both are not metal songs, but more like a kind of mellow rock almost. The guitars are not as prevalent in them. And Two Lane Back Blacktop, the single, that one is just like Demon Speeding, and that it's a definite Rob Zombie nailing that, ferocious song is really good. So there's just no problem when he does that sort of thing. Even though the tempo is kind of different on some of these, it still has virtually the same feel, and that's just manicness. So between all those and the other one is Thunder Kiss 65, so both of these pretty much nail it. Now, obviously, we needed to know past like the third single. It just feels as if this album was kind of wrapped up too briefly because, after the second single, most of the time, most people aren't paying attention to the third single just because the first one is so good. I feel like that's what most people are going to do is just go for the biggest song off each of his albums, and those are the favorites. But, clearly over 12 songs out of 19 are good. So that's the whole thing. Get to know. That's just what I recommend to any newcomers, is to get to know all of the songs, not just Dragula, not just More Human Than Human, and not just, Demon Speeding and these type songs. So there's just more of a promise to it. But can this record be topped? I think not really. It is going to get a 10. Me liking 14 out of 19 is, I guess really I could give it a 9.5, but for the most part it is qualified. And yeah, I would say 9.5 out of 10. And the Social Score gets a 10, obviously, because this is just all his singles for the most part. It's not every single one, but it's pretty close. So there's that. And, obviously the best idea would be to get his discography and make your own playlist, but this definitely helps because it gives you all those soundtrack songs. So you don't have to get the Crow soundtrack and the rest of them just to you know, the complete Rob Zombie experience. You just get this, which is probably what I'm gonna do. But alright, subscribe for more fun.